Hello guys, I am Nitishres Pagalwadi, your science teacher, Sankalp Solutions. In the last class, we discussed regarding the sources of energy. Today, we are going to discuss the other topic of science, where we are going to learn about what is the things around us, how they are impacting, how they are affecting around us, how blindly we are harming our surrounding. That all we are going to learn in the chapter which is called as our environment. Guys, you might remember in our lower classes like fourth, fifth, till I think in fifth standard, we learned science as a subject of environmental science or Parisara Adhyayana. So there we learned regarding the environment, right? So what is environment? The surroundings. What will be there in your surrounding? You will be having the living beings. You will be surrounded with the living beings, non-living things, as well as very essential non-living things like water, soil, mountains. All right. So studying about this all we are going to learn in this concept. So let us begin. Today's topic is our environment. So here uh, they share the first one is the waste. As I said you before, how blindly we are harming our environment. We know that the waste will be created at every house, in every school, in every building, in everything the waste will be created. For example, take a home or a house. So in the house, vegetable peels, fruit peels, the waste paper, and whatever the dust is there, that and old clothes. So everything will be the waste, right? And also electronic waste. Some of the electronic gadgets will be damaged. Those won't be no longer used. So those will also add up to the waste. So these waste, how to manage this waste? So we know that every morning the waste picker or the rag picker or the garbage municipality people will come to collect the waste from our houses. So once they collect the waste from our houses, where they will throw it, how the waste is managed. So that all we are going to learn. So first we will categorize what is waste, which is not useful is called as waste, which is not useful for further use or for a longer period now, that is called as waste. So waste is regarded as two types, guys. So that waste is called as biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. So recently, you might watch in the news like in the Bangalore in one of the area. So they are doing landfill. Landfill means the garbage or the waste of that area will be dumped into that place. So many of the people of the local people in that area were opposing that. So they were telling the old people or the elders will come for a walk there. The children will come to play. And that place is surrounded by many schools. So every morning that road will be busy. So due to the waste which is dumped over there, so it increases the mosquitoes, it increases the bad smell or odor, and it spoils or it pollutes the soil. It might mix with the rainwater and cause, we can say, the water pollution. The number of mosquitoes increases. The number of microorganisms causing diseases increases. So overall, it harms the people which who are living there, and also it harms the soil, it harms the water, everything. So how the waste will be managed, that is the big problem now. Our population is more, so when the population is more, waste will be created, that will be more. So that waste has to be managed. No doubt some of the waste will be recycled, and nowadays we know that many people are following the waste management at their houses. Many people, out of their interest, they are preparing manure, compost in their houses using vegetable peels, fruit peels, and all. And please also cultivate the habit of doing the best out of waste. So we will be having the competition now, right? So like that, we have to utilize the waste and we have to minimize the waste generation. So this is regarding the waste management. Let us consider or let us learn now types of the waste. So as you can see here, we have two types of waste, guys. So the first one is a biodegradable waste. The second one is a non-biodegradable waste. Bio means what? Living. Degradable means what? Breaking down. So here simply we can say that waste which will be broken down by the action of living organism. Which living organism? Which kind of living organism? So which kind of living organism break down the waste into simpler forms? Just think. Yes. So the kind of living organism here involved are nothing but the microorganism, like guys. So the microorganisms like bacteria, like fungi. So these have a capacity to break down the material, to decay the substance into the simpler form. What is decaying? Decaying nothing but the material or the substance will be converted into its simplest form so that other organisms are able to absorb it. So biodegradable waste means these waste which will be decayed or degraded and they will convert into harmless substance by the microorganism. For example, we have vegetable, fruits, pulses, cereals, animal bones, animal dung like cow dung, human excreta, leather, paper. So these all waste will be degraded, decomposed or decayed by the action of microorganisms. The next one we will get is a non-biodegradable waste. Non means no always. Biodegradable means the living organism cannot be uh, cannot break down these waste. So these waste cannot be broken down by the living organism or by the action of the microorganism. They will last forever. They will last forever. Their lifespan will be very, what we can say, their lifespan, they are immortal, we can say. They will not die or they will not decay on. For example, the best thing is plastic, polythene bags, synthetic fibers, glass, metals, synthetic rubber. So insecticides, pesticides, which are sprayed for the plants or the crops. So these will not decay or degrade. So when they will not decay or degrade, they will cause harm for the organism as well as for the environment. So these are two types of waste which are very, very important. Next we have, this is a brief introduction about the waste in this chapter. Now we are actually entering into the chapter. So in this chapter, we are learning about the ecosystem. So what is this ecosystem? As I said you all, we are surrounded by the living beings as well as non-living things. There will be certain interaction between living beings and non-living things. For example, consider plant, guys. Plant will absorb water from the soil. Soil is a non-living thing. Water is a non-living thing. Carbon dioxide gas which is produced in the atmosphere, it is a non-living thing. But these all non-living things or the non-living, what we can say, non-living matters are essential for the living beings to sustain, to live, to be alive. So there will be some kind of relationship between these non-living and the living components. So that is called as ecosystem. Okay, the interaction between the living organism and non-living component is called as ecosystem. So here we have two types of ecosystem. The first one is natural, which is produced naturally without the intervention, without the involvement of the human being. Example, forest, desert, grasslands, mountains, ponds, lakes, rivers. So these all are not prepared from the man. These are originated from the nature only. So that is why these are the example of natural ecosystem. The next one we have the gardens, parks, we can say the water world. So these all are manufactured, no, produced or constructed by the human beings. So these are called as artificial ecosystem, right? So as I said, ecosystem is an interaction between the living and non-living component. So here ecosystem will be having certain parts in it, certain components within it. So those are biotic and abiotic components. So here biotic component Biotic component. Biotic relates to a living component. So the living component which are present in the environment are called as biotic components of the ecosystem. You can take human beings, animals, microorganisms, the organisms which are present in the soil, plants, algae, so which all are there, na, these are biotic components. So in the biotic components, again we have three subdivisions: the producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers means what? As the name indicates that they produce, they are not dependent on other organisms. They actually produce their own food. So the first biotic component, producers. So in this we will get the plants and the algae, which have the ability to photosynthesize to produce their own food. Okay. Then the next one is consumers. So these are the living organisms which are directly or indirectly dependent on the producers. Okay. So we human beings eat the plant and plant products. We eat animal and animal products. Animals eat plants. Animals will eat animals. So these all are the consumers which are dependent on the producers. So that is also one kind of uh, subdivision of a biotic component, we can say. The next one is decomposers. So decomposers means what? These are also living organisms, but these are involved in decaying, degrading the dead plants and animals or the dead living organism. So how they will decay, or how what they will do? They will convert the complex substance into a simpler form, into a simpler inorganic substances. So those substances can be very easily absorbed by the soil and can be used by other living organisms. So that is the role of decomposers. So as they are, these are also living organisms, they will come under biotic components. So here the examples will be the microorganisms, right? The next one is abiotic component. Abiotic, means no, non, biotic living. So the non-living organisms or the non-living components are called abiotic. Soil, water, air, temperature, wind. So these all will come under abiotic components. So abiotic component, we can think that only biotic components are necessary. What is the use of abiotic component? No, with this abiotic component only, biotic components can be alive, can sustain their life. See, without water we can't live. Without soil and air we can't live, means plants cannot live. Without sunlight, the plants cannot prepare their own food. So there will be a continuous interaction, continuous communication between the living components as well as non-living components. So this interaction we will call it as ecosystem. Okay, next. The next one is food chain. As I said, there will be an interaction, there will be a dependency or one organism on the other organism. So this dependency will be in the form of a chain, which is called as food chain. So majorly, the source of energy for every living organism is a food. So how we are dependent on the food? That will be understood by understanding the food chain. So what is food chain here? It is a flow of food energy. It is a flow of food energy from one organism to another organism. So you remember that in biotic components, we learned three subtypes: producers, consumers, and the decomposers. So the food will be transported to every cell division, sorry, subdivision, right? So here, they usually start with the producer. For example, see here, grass. Grass is a plant, okay? It can produce its own food by the photosynthesis, right? So when it produces the food, the grass will be eaten by the deer. So it is the first consumer, first organism which eats the producer. That is why deer is called as primary consumer. Primary means first. Then deer will be eaten by the lion. So here, in reference to the grass, with reference to the grass, lion is a second animal or a second organism. So that is why it is regarded or called as secondary consumer. Grass eaten by deer, deer eaten by lion. So this food, the transferring of the food, grass is a food for deer is a food for lion. So here food energy is flowing from one organism from one organism to other organism in the form of a chain, which is called as food chain. Let us see other example. See, grass is eaten by insect. Here insect will be primary consumer. Insect will be eaten by a frog. Frog with reference to grass is a second animal, so it is secondary consumer. Frog is eaten by a snake. With reference to the grass, snake is a third organism, so it is tertiary consumer. Tertiary means third. So like this, a food chain is nothing but the food flow, the energy of the food energy will flow from one organism to another organism, which is called food chain. Okay, now just a minute. Next one. See here you can see sample food chain. So here primary producers, then it is eaten by the insect, then carnivore, then again one more carnivore. Here see the plant, it is eaten by or the insect or a grasshopper, and it is eaten by a rat. Rat is eaten by a snake. Snake is eaten by an eagle. The fourth organism with reference to plant. So fourth one is called quaternary consumer. Similarly, the food chain also occurs inside the water, that is in an aquatic organism also we can see the food chain. So here phytoplankton means small plants which are grown inside the sea. Okay, so the phytoplanktons will be eaten by zooplankton. Zooplanktons means very small animals which are present inside the sea. So these zooplanktons will be eaten by small fishes. Small fishes will be eaten by bigger fishes. Bigger fish will be eaten by shark or a dolphin. So like this, a food chain also occurs in an aquatic ecosystem. Right? So here also you can see trophic level. Each stage is called as trophic level. For example, grass is a first trophic level. Next stage, that is primary consumer, is a grasshopper. It is a second. Next, secondary consumer, third trophic level. Stage, each stage is called as trophic level. So here you can see three types of natural ecosystem. Grassland ecosystem, biome means ecosystem, pond and ocean. Grassland means where grass is more. So in the grassland ecosystem, grass is a primary producer. It is eaten by a grasshopper. It is eaten by rat, which is secondary. Rat is eaten by a snake, which is tertiary. Snake is eaten by the hawk, which is quaternary consumer. So same way, pond ecosystem. Pond ecosystem means a small pond which is present in the environment. So here what happens, just a minute. Okay, here what happens, algae will be there in the pond ecosystem. Algae, the green patches, the green organisms, small patches. So it will be eaten by a mosquito larva, that is the egg will hatch into a small organism which is called larva. Larva will be eaten by dragonfly larva, and these dragonfly larva will be eaten by fish. Fish are eaten by raccoons. Same ocean ecosystem, phytoplankton, zooplankton, fish, seal, white shark. So like this, in every natural ecosystem, you can observe the food chain. And each stage, each step in an ecosystem is called as, each step in a food chain is referred as trophic level. So you can say that why food chain is necessary to maintain the balance in an environment. See, if the grass is not eaten by a grasshopper, then the number of grass increases. If grasshoppers will not be eaten by the rat, then the full of earth will be with the grasshoppers. If the rat is not eaten by a snake, then the full of our environment will be with the snakes. So to maintain the balance in the ecosystem, food chain is necessary. Okay. Next we have food web. Food web is nothing but it is a group of food chain, or the interconnected food chain are called as food web. So in a food web, we can see number of food chain. Okay, we can see number of food chain. For example, see producer, this is a plant. Plant is eaten by a insect. Plant is eaten by a grasshopper. Plant is eaten by a larva of many insect. and sometimes plant is eaten by a deer, then grasshopper is eaten by a bird, insect can be eaten by a bird, grasshopper can be eaten by a rat. So there will be an interconnection between several food chain, which is called as a web. A network of food chain is called as food web. And regarding the trophic levels and the flow of energy, we are going to learn in the next session. So in today's session, we learned regarding how to manage the waste. What are the kinds of the waste? What problems we are facing with the increase in waste? As well as we learned regarding the food chain, trophic levels, and how the food chains are helpful for the environment. And we also briefly learned about the food web. So in the upcoming session, we will discuss a lot more about the trophic levels and their importance. Until that, take care. Have a nice day.